Hey guys, welcome to episode 3 of Command Help. Today we're going to be helping out a player with the name the Sam54123. The question this player has is how can you make it so that when players die on your server, they're put in spectator mode until you specify for them to respawn back in survival mode. So in other words, pretty much we're going to be making a spectator mode for players who die in like a PvP situation, such as in like Team Fortress 2. So here we go. Let's see how you can make this work with command blocks. All right, so here it is, 3 columns of command blocks that make this possible. So let's start with the first column. Now, I did something a little different in this video than I did in the last video where we talked about scoreboard clocks. I actually labeled each of the command blocks with signs to make it a little bit easier for you to follow along since this is so technical when we talk about it. So I hope this makes it a little bit more user-friendly, and if not, I'm sorry I spammed your screen with signs. So let's go ahead and check out the first column that we need to look at. Now this is a repeating command block, which is going to do exactly what we looked at in the last video that I made for Zombie Zohan. Pretty much, we're going to be using game ticks and then converting them into seconds, and then using that as our timer for this actual command block creation. So let's go ahead and check out the command in this first block. Now, just like in the last video, I'm assuming that you guys have some sort of knowledge of the scoreboard command and how scoreboard works with both players and objectives. If not, stay tuned. I'll be releasing a video on the scoreboard command in my command series on the basics of all the commands in Minecraft really soon. So it's not up yet as of the time of me releasing this video right now, but if you're watching this at a later time, go ahead and head over there now if you don't understand the scoreboard command, and then come back and check out this video since this is pretty advanced stuff. Alright, so here we go. We have a scoreboard command that's working with a fake player named respawn ticks. And I also have an objective named respawn ticks. Now, I mentioned this in the last video, and I think it's worth mentioning one more time. Pretty much, these are the exact same name because as I go and work in this world and add different objectives, I don't want all of these fake players floating around that I don't know why I created. So pretty much I made this fake player just for the sake of working with this objective, and so I gave them the exact same name. Alright, there you go. Now you know the method of my madness here and how I'm going to be working with fake players and objectives from now on, so I won't mention it anymore. Okay, so after you've got this first command, the next block, test when that fake player's score is equal to 20. And I talked about this in the last video also. Pretty much in Minecraft, the way that you measure time is in game ticks, and 20 ticks is equal to 1 second of our time. So pretty much what we're doing here is we're going to test whether or not this fake player has a score of 20 when it comes to the objective of respawn ticks. If this is true, we're going to go ahead and set that fake player score back to 0. And what this does is it resets that game tick count timer back to 0 once per second. So here's the command for that. It's pretty simple and straightforward. You're just going to use the scoreboard players command and specify that you want to set that player named respawn ticks back to 0 for the objective respawn ticks. Now, if that command has run successfully, the next thing that happens is you remove 1 second from the dead player's respawn time. Now, this gets a little more complicated, and we're going to have to talk about something called scoreboard tags. Now, I'm not doing a tutorial video on tags and how they work, so you're going to have to bear with me as I explain it as simply as possible without getting bogged down, since this is a pretty complicated concept, and I'm sure this video is going to be pushing, 10 minutes or so most likely. Let's see if I can stick to that time by talking really fast as I'm already doing, so hang with me. So here we go. We have a scoreboard command that's working with players, and what we're going to do is we're actually going to remove some points from certain players. Now, we have this specifier here, which is pretty long, so let me go ahead and center it so you can see it. And what we're doing is we're specifying the players that we want to work with for removing some scoreboard objective points are all of the players that have the tag ghost. And they also have a score respawn time minimum of 1. Now, this is another objective that I've made, And if you watch the previous video that I did for Zombie Zohan, you'll see how I converted those game ticks into seconds. Pretty much, this is the objective that I'm using for my timer in seconds. Okay, so I'm specifying that I want to remove points from all players with a tag of ghost and with a scoreboard objective value minimum of 1 for the objective of respawn time. Now here I'm specifying that I want to remove from that very objective just 1 point. And the reason for that is that this is the time that it takes for that player to respawn. So what I've done essentially is I've made a countdown timer. So this is different than the last video where I made a timer that counts seconds going from 0 to 10, whereas this timer is going to count, I believe, from 10 to 0. I think that's the amount of seconds I specified. So let's move on to the second column. Now what we're going to do is we're going to tag all the players who die as ghost. Now, as you saw in the previous column, I already was working with this tag, so I know that's a little confusing, but pretty much what we're going to do is we're going to use the execute command at all of the players who have a score of deaths minimum equal to 1. Now, I made another scoreboard objective that counts whenever a player dies. So pretty much what this does is if you die, you now have a death score of at least 1. So it's going to target you. And then we have the coordinates for where we want that command to execute, which is relative to the player. And then we have the command that we're executing, which is scoreboard players tag all of the players who are nearest to that player, which is going to be literally the player that it's executing on, who do not have the tag ghost. And then what we want to do is give them the tag ghost. Now, like I said just a second ago, I'm not going to explain how tags work per se. I'm just showing you that I'm using scoreboard tags to accomplish this pretty complicated effect of dying and spawning back in a spectator mode for a certain amount of time. So let's move on now to the next command block that resets that death count for everybody who dies and then is tagged as a ghost. So we're going to make use of the execute command a lot, and here we're using it a second time for all the players with that same objective value of deaths minimum equal to 1. And now what we're doing, instead of adding the tag ghost, we're going to be setting all the players with, or the closest player I should say, with the tag ghost to deaths 0. So we're resetting the death counter for that specific player who just died. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to put all ghost in spectator mode. So we're going to use the execute command, and we're going to target all the players who are tagged as ghost. We're going to execute the command relative to their position and use the @p specifier here, which is going to make it target the very player it's executing on. And we're going to set them to game mode 3. Now, this tag I have here as break fix, you can just ignore that and just use game mode 3 @p if you want. I have this here because when I work with command blocks, I never want to get stuck in spectator mode, because in order to work with command blocks, you have to be in game mode 1 or in creative mode, as it's also known. So as you can imagine, if you're stuck in spectator mode because of a command block putting you in spectator mode, you're going to be stuck in an infinite loop. You're never going to be able to get out unless you do something crazy like use a set block command to destroy the command block that's ruining your day. Anyways, you can ignore this if you want, or you can add it if you want to be safe. So moving on, we now have the next one, which starts the respawn countdown for the ghost. So the way this works is we're going to use the execute command for all of the ghost players in spectator mode. We're going to execute relative to their position just like we've been doing, and we're going to specify the nearest player, which makes it activate on the player we're targeting, and we're going to tag them with a tag called start timer. What this does is it makes it so the countdown starts from the number we specify, which is 10 seconds here in this command block. So we're executing at all the players who now have a tag of start timer and are also ghost. Now, I didn't specify it here because if you try and do tag equals ghost, tag equals start timer, whichever one is in the last position inside of these brackets, it's going to override the first one. So pretty much what we're doing is we're using the order that these commands are executing to make sure that we're executing this command on a player who already has the ghost tag. So we're going to go ahead and execute at all the players who have started the timer. And the way we're going to do this is we're going to use scoreboard players set at the nearest player, respawn time to 10. So we want the respawn countdown to start at 10 seconds. Now that the timer started, we want to remove that start timer tag from all the players that are ghost. So we're going to execute at all the players who have that tag, and then we're going to use scoreboard players tag at P, remove start timer, to remove that start timer tag from the players who have started their countdown. Okay, we're almost there. We have the third column now. Now here we have a command block. When countdown reaches 0, it sets ghost back to survival mode. So now we're getting into the actual respawning of the players. So if we look at this, we can see that we're executing at all players with a tag of ghost who are in spectator mode, which is mode equals 3, and also have a score respawn time equal to 0. Now, after we do that here, we've targeted that player. We need to say what we want to do to them. And what we want to do is we want to set them back into survival mode, which is game mode 0. After that, we want to teleport that ghost to the respawn point. So we're going to execute at the person, all players who are tagged as ghost, who are in survival mode now. And then we're going to teleport them with the TP command using the nearest player specifier and then the coordinates of our spawn point. Now, here is the X, the Y, and the Z coordinate for this teleport command. And you'll see I have two other numbers here. This is pretty much telling Minecraft where I want the player to be looking. So if it teleports them to this coordinates, I want them looking at a specific direction. So I'm going to go ahead and specify that with these two numbers. Okay, the last command block. Now we're going to remove the ghost tag now that the player is alive, in survival mode, and has been teleported to the spawn point that we want them to go to. So the way you do this is you use execute at all, and you're going to look at all the players who are tagged as ghost and are now in survival mode, and then you're going to do scoreboard players tag at P remove ghost. So here it is. This is the cycle. You've tagged somebody as a ghost as soon as you realize that they've died with the death counter, and then you do everything that you want to do to make them have that spectator mode experience for a few seconds that you specify, and then after that, you bring them back to life at a specific spot, which is this spawn point in survival mode. Okay, so here's the demonstration to prove to you guys that this actually works. So if I go ahead and type out /kill and kill myself, and then respawn, you'll see that I'm now in spectator mode and able to fly around and spectate all the combat going on my PvP server, check out what's happening to all my teammates, and then respawn back in survival mode on the spawn point that I have specified. Okay guys, thanks for watching this video on this awesome concept for PvP servers where you can get people playing in spectator mode, watching all the combat, and then respawning back in survival mode. I'll see you guys in the next video where we're going to help somebody else out with their command block problems. Now, if you want to be the person that I'm helping out next, go ahead and leave a comment down below and tell me what your problem is, and I'll make a video solving it and giving you the solution. I'll see you guys there.